Hi, this is James Spencer from Spencer Artist Development. Welcome to episode 9 of my voice acting videos. And today we are going to discuss a subject that isn't always glamorous, but it may be one of the most important subjects for anyone who wants to become a working voice actor. That is financial planning towards your career. Money. Because talent is wonderful. Training is wonderful. A great microphone is wonderful. But if you don't have a financial plan, your voiceover career can become very difficult to sustain. Voiceover is a career and a business. Many people begin voiceover while working a traditional 9-to-5 job. And that's completely understandable. You have rent, a mortgage, utilities, food, doctor's bills, family obligations, and suddenly you're trying to build a new career at night after working 8 or 10 hours somewhere else. The problem is that exhaustion can also be expensive. If you're physically and mentally depleted after your day job, how much energy do you actually have left for auditions, practice, coaching sessions with your voiceover coach, recording, marketing, networking, building your website, learning new technology? That's why I encourage students to think about financial transition planning rather than simply dreaming about becoming self-employed. The goal isn't necessarily to quit your job tomorrow. The goal is to create a realistic pathway towards greater professional independence. Know where your money is going. Here's something I've learned from working with artists. Sometimes people tell me, Jim, I can't afford voiceover coaching. And occasionally that's absolutely true. But sometimes we discover that the issue isn't income, it's financial awareness or lack of. Where is your money actually going? How much are you spending on restaurants, subscriptions, entertainment, shopping, impulse buying, travel and vacation? One example I see frequently is that daily specialty coffee habit. If you're spending $10 every day at Starbucks on coffee and sweets, that can roughly equal $300 a month that could potentially be towards your private coaching sessions or saving for investment in your career. And I'm not telling you that you can never drink coffee or take a vacation. I'm asking you to examine your priorities. It becomes a professional, or if becoming a professional voice actor is genuinely important to you, your spending should reflect that goal. Create a career investment fund. I recommend creating a specific budget for your professional development. Think of it as an investment account for your future artist self. That money can eventually go towards your training or coaching, certifications, your voiceover demos, equipment, software, branding, new computer, your website, marketing, and other professional expenses. You don't have to purchase everything at once, but build it strategically with a coach that can help you do that. And don't try to do it all at once. A mistake I often see someone deciding is, I'm going to become a professional voice actor. I have the money. Then they immediately, before even studying voiceover, spend almost $1,000 worth of equipment and make mistakes. And I'm like, wow, slow down, build your career in manageable stages, and you might begin a course with professional coaching sessions. Then develop your demos, then your first portfolio, and improve your recording environment. Then develop your website, expand your specializations, and as your income starts to grow, reinvest some of that income back into your business. And that's how many successful businesses operate. Think about your education. People will spend 4 years' earnings of a university degree and thousands of dollars prepping for a career. I actually did this myself. I did first an associate's, then I did a double bachelor's, a double master's. I then went on for fellowship, and I did credentialing, and I did a clinical hypnotherapy degree. All my schooling, was almost, I think it was close to, I don't know, $80,000 I invested in myself. And, with voiceover, the challenge is usually there are no degree programs in voiceover in community colleges or universities. I know of maybe one or two in the whole US. Okay. Therefore, let's say you're a high school student. Most parents are like, you got to go to college, right? So a lot of people don't understand that, usually, with voiceover, you have to have a coach and build by learning inside the business. Same is true of actors. Some actors go to universities and study and get a degree. But what's fascinating is I'll get people that come out of even USC with bachelor's and master's in drama, and they're not working as an actor because they never learned business skills of this is how you get an agent, this is how you build a business, right? So what you want to think is that investment is in your future, okay? Some of this is also tax deductible. So if you are working as a voiceover artist, you can write off some of these, you can write off your website. You can write off your certification courses, right? So you can make your money work for you. So what does a typical investment portfolio look like for voiceover artists? What should you expect in expenses? So first of all, coaching. Okay, and the best coaches in voiceover are roughly going to be anywhere from on the low $75 an hour to on the high $150 and even $200 an hour. Okay, and so that investment runs anywhere from $300 to $400 a month in private study one-on-one. Okay. Now, there's always ways around it. Like, so for example, if someone calls me, I do have weekly studies that are, 45-minute, hour, or 90-minute duration. But I do understand that some people are under financial strain. So for example, I allow for 1 hour every other week, which I supplement with additional videos and things, which is very affordable. For most people. So that runs from my studio approximately about $200 a month. And people go, oh, that's still a little expensive. But it's so interesting that those same people will go out to dinner and spend $80 on one night going out to dinner and getting drinks. And I'm like, you can spend $200 in investing in your future. It really isn't that much. Interestingly enough, too, people like, I go to the show. I had some students that said they just went and saw, Phantom of the Opera, right? And tickets alone were $250. So they have the money to go see Phantom of the Opera, so you might have the money to invest in your sessions, okay? So that's important. Then once you have that, the next step is going to be your demos. Now, luckily, I have an affiliated studio in Westminster, California called Adamos. And my students can record very inexpensively, get like literally all 15, 5 commercials, 5 animation, 5 audiobook narrations, and they're 3 master reels with music, everything mastered. They can do that in a couple of hours for $120 at the most. That's amazing. A lot of studios in LA require you to book, a whole morning or whatever, and studio time can be $500 to $1,000, right? I'm affiliated around the US. So if you live in another state, I will help you find a studio that is inexpensive. So I have students right now, for example, in Pennsylvania. We got them into a recording studio. They did beautiful demos, cost $100, So you just have to know the industry. And that's where an artist developer that is affiliated can help you with those things. Okay, so after you have your demos, then the next step is going to be your branding and website portfolio. You need to be on the internet. And to do that right, I say, you want to invest about 1,500 to maybe 3,000 towards all of that. Now, people say this all the time to me. Oh, Jim, I can save money. I'll do my website myself with GoDaddy or Wix or whatever. Here's the deal. Sure, they can do that. But are they an artist developer that knows the industry? Do they know the design of what's going to attract someone in? Do they know SEO optimization that's going to put them ahead of other people, and how to use Google Analytics and other software to track that to see how your website's doing? Are you getting hits? A lot of people do a website and then it just gets undiscovered on the internet. So you just wasted all that money. You're not really getting the hits. That's where you want an artist developer to help you. Also, that artist developer like myself is going to help you say, okay, now let's go into your website. Let me show you how to do projects. Let me show you how to create a store. Let me show you how you can take over that website with your private business and manage it. Where people go wrong, I have this all the time, where someone spends a lot of money with someone else to do a website. They never learned how that website works. They move and it's like, I need help, and now they're spending more money trying to fix it without really knowing and managing their business. Okay, so what an artist developer should do is show you, yes, they'll design your website, but this is how you manage it. Okay, and so forth. So that's why that investment's better. In my website packages with my students, I also will include coaching on all of that so they can take over their businesses. Okay, DM me or message me in comments below this video, and I will send you examples of all my students' websites that you can see how they're doing and how they can manage their businesses. And a lot of these people that have started with me from scratch, and within 6 months to under a year, they're working in the industry. That's smart, right? Instead of just like, I hope I get something, and you're floundering for like 3 and 4 years. Okay. In addition, your computer is a important and one of the most important investments, and I recommend one of two things: an iMac with a lot of storage, high-speed internet, stationary. Okay, if you are trying to do voiceover on a tiny screen this small, like a laptop, it's not going to work. And we are going to be moving as voiceover artists large files. Like right now, I'm creating this podcast video, and to upload that from my computer program in Photo Booth. Then I have to upload it to my computer, which takes some time. Then I have to upload it to YouTube. And this is large bandwidth. And so if you have low memory, it's going to freeze up your computer, right? And I'm multitasking. So even though I'm doing this video with you guys right now, in the background, I have AI formulating scripts for my next student. I am dubbing some music excerpts from Suno to use in a project. I'm multitasking. So you want to have a computer system that can do that. Now, unfortunately, the newer iMacs, like my iMac is from about 4 years ago. So I do have that nice big 32-inch screen. The new ones are smaller. So then what I recommend is getting what's called the mini Mac, and then you can get a really large monitor, and there's some really excellent ones, and that's the next thing I'm going to do. You can actually have like a 40-inch monitor. Now, what that also can do is create less technology in your home. So because you can see my living room here, so this also means that, I can watch TV. I have my music media. I have everything on one unit instead of having to have a TV and a DVD player and all this other stuff, right? So you can downsize effectively too. So a lot of my students that have home-based businesses do that. They get a larger screen, and I have one student that is living in a lovely 2-bedroom apartment in Santa Monica on the beach. But, in her living room, she has her workspace, but it's also, she can watch TV, she can entertain, she can bring clients back and show things of her artwork on the screen. Everything's working for her comfortably. That's really smart. That way she doesn't need the overhead of having to rent an office and spend more money, right? So these are things I teach about, like, what's going to be specific for where you live, and your marketability. Okay. In addition to that, eventually, besides the computer, you're going to want to invest, if you are going to do a home studio, in the right type of home studio, which means a professional voiceover microphone, of course, your computer, lighting, temperature control, and usually a custom pod. So they make voiceover pods that are soundproof, but they're also, for example, bulletproof, weatherproof. They are temperature controlled, where you're in a comfortable environment where you can see and work. Okay, and you can lock that up, and you can just take that pod and match it to your furniture. For example, with upholstery and so forth, make it look like it's part of the room, or put it in the corner. And not just like a little phone booth where you're standing like this all day. They make these pods where you could sit down like I'm sitting in a desk area, whatever that is, like maybe 14 by 14 feet or 12 by 12 or something like that, where you're comfortable and can move around with a computer, a nice comfortable, chair like this, and work. Those run, to do them right, anywhere from about $6,000 all the way up to $20,000, depending on what you want to do. Some pods are conference pods, where you could be sitting at a desk and have other people in a booth if you're really going to do some kind of big animation company down the line or something like that. Or they can be small, okay? But you want to do that right. A lot of people think, oh, I can just take a closet and make it into a voiceover studio and just get some cheap foam padding from Home Depot. And sure, that might work temporarily, but think about weather changes. Today in California, it's nearly 90 degrees with humidity. So if I was working in my closet back there, where you can see the doors with the wreaths, if I go back in there, it's going to be hot and uncomfortable. That's hard to sustain on a daily basis. It might work temporarily. Right? Professional voiceover artists invest in the right type of home studio. Okay. Also, the industry keeps changing, so there's new software, there's new AI developments that can make your work lighter, and it keeps changing day to day. And it's almost like I think, oh, I've learned something new, and it's like, oh, something even newer is out. And this is also happening with computers too. So like my iMac, for example, I thought was pretty state of the art 5 years ago, and then the newer iMacs come with all this AI. They're 10 times faster than my computer already, and that's happening. Like, we're in such a quantum leap of technology. You have to stay up on that, and that means looking to the future always. Yes, I have my studio this year, but what is it going to look like next year or 5 years down the line? Okay, so that's very important. Where you live matters. Let's talk about that. Geography. Where you live can influence your opportunities for abundance. Okay, and here's a little spiritual trick. If you feel abundant, you tend to attract abundance. Here's an example from my life. When I was young, right out of high school, I temporarily lived in Costa Mesa, California. Now, I had a nice apartment. I had a, 1,000 square foot apartment, but I wasn't in the best area. I looked out my window and I saw an auto parts store, a Mexican restaurant. There wasn't a lot of greenery. It wasn't that it was like dirt poor area, but it didn't feel luxurious. And guess what? I would feel depressed, and I didn't attract money. The minute I decided, okay, I'm tired of living here, let me move, and it's by the way, the same pricing on my other apartment, but let me move now to Newport Beach, where I look out the window and see the beautiful ocean, and I see down Pacific Coast Highway multimillionaires driving their BMWs. It puts me in a different environment, and guess what happened? I tripled my income in 4 months. That's insane. I'm like, oh my God, right? So strategically looking where you live is going to affect the money you make. Obviously, as a voiceover artist, I live near the voiceover artistry, but not directly in it. So like my home is in Long Beach. I live right on the ocean in a quiet neighborhood, but I attract the industry. Okay, I can be in Burbank and Century City, and where the studios are quickly within 30 minutes. Or those students that are in the industry can come to me, right? That's smart. But if I lived, which I love the South, for example, I've lived in Savannah, Georgia briefly. I've been in parts of, in Texas and different things. But when I lived a little bit more in the country, okay, I'm like, what are my opportunities? Not as much. So if that's the case, don't be scared. You can start where you are and get started. But then if you I want, for example, I hear people say, I want to be in animation, specifically animation, voiceover, video gaming. The industry tends to be mostly California for that. There's other areas, New York and Atlanta, and there's other places. But if you live in I'm just going to use an example, rural Mississippi, your chances of making money in voiceover are going to be more difficult. So you might have to create a 1 year or 2 year plan to relocate. And that's something I work with my clients on. I have a girl right now, lovely lady, lives in Oldstown, Pennsylvania, who wants to move now to California for her dream of animation voiceover career, okay? And she is transitioning out of being a waitress, moving into more full-time voiceover to plan than for her move. And also with the waitressing work she's doing, she could also transfer to that same chain of restaurants out here, so she still has work. Smart. So she's got a game plan going, and that's something you might want to think about. Is going where the industry is. And also, that industry is the type of person you are. Some people, I have a lot of students, I teach acting and musical theater too. And I have some students that adore New York City. And they're like, I want to be in the Big Apple and on Broadway. And that's great. But there's a lifestyle that goes with that, right? You have to be okay with the colder winters and the congestion and subways. And there's nothing wrong with that if that's what you like. And for me, I go, oh, hell no, that's not right for me. I'm a tropical person. I like to be out at the beach. And so the California lifestyle is much more geared towards my lifestyle. Also out here, I find, I'm vegan, plant-based, for example. I'm into holistic health. That's very California. Okay, I didn't see that when I lived in other cities. I love Savannah, Georgia for the beauty, the elegance when I was there. Gorgeous city, one of my favorite cities in the world. But for the arts opportunities and lifestyle opportunities, it wasn't, for me personally, the right place to be. And those are things that you want to discover, is to have that game plan. Okay? Think about taxes properly, because remember, when you're self-employed, you have business expenses that you can write off. Okay, so that's something I teach, or other people can teach you. Abundance is a mindset. Do you wake up in the morning and say, I'm in gratitude for everything I have? I'm thankful for my health. I'm thankful for voiceover and creativity and getting to wake up and do what I love to do instead of going to a 9-to-5 job. I'm thankful for my beautiful home, for my family or my extended family. Or do you wake up and go, oh my God, another bill. Oh my God, I can't afford it. I never have enough. I'll never be as good as them. Is that your mentality? And if that's the case, you are what you think and your resonance. Okay, so you might need to work on the spiritual, mental, emotional side. I sometimes get students that have come through really difficult things. I have a student that's had anorexia. I have another student that's been battling schizophrenia, but they're working and they're not giving up. And I have such respect that those people are going for their dreams and not playing victim. I had my own things I dealt with. I went through the death of 2 spouses, and I went through some health issues in my youth and things like that. But it's about You can change your life. Sorry, there's a plane flying above. Let it go by. Sorry about that. That occasionally happens. I do live in LA County. There is a book I recommend. It's by Julia Cameron, and it's called The Prosperous Heart. And that is a workbook for both your mind, abundance, consciousness. I recommend that. I also belong to a group. It's called the Crimson Circle. They're a spiritual group that could also help you to get into that space of you are indeed God also, okay? You have that power within you. And if you're resonating a certain way, you will attract all those good things in life, okay? But that might take some practice to change your habits. Okay, don't wait for the big break. You know, I hear people say, oh, I want to be a voiceover artist, maybe someday. And then they keep putting it off. Next year, wow, I was so inspired. I went to this, this convention. I saw all these cool voiceover artists and animation. Wish I could do that. They do nothing about it. And a lot of these people, too, get into the typical American habit, and there's nothing wrong with sitting and watching Netflix, but they waste their whole life away. They come home from work, they sit and have a beer, they lay on the couch, couch potato, and do nothing with their lives, okay? You have a choice. Get excited about the journey. It's not just about the destination. But, if you get up in the morning like, wow, I get to go work with my voiceover coach today. I'm going to learn something new. Oh, wow, I'm working on some new cool animation characters today. That's exciting. That's creative, okay? Instead of watching whatever it is, Housewives, reality television and just being clueless. You have a choice. So you want to, build gradually, develop those skills, create your demos. Take appropriate freelance work, develop your website, create your 2 to 3 year plan. Where am I now? Where do I want to be a year from now? Where do I want to be 2 years from now? 3 years from now? 5 years from now? And, with that too, we all want different lifestyles. Some people are like, I see myself being married and having children. Well, what if you plan that out? Like I have a brother who is a brilliant advertising artist that has his own business from home. So he gets to be home with his 3 beautiful daughters. How cool's that? He doesn't have to go to a 9 to 5. And so that works for him. And then I have another student who's in voiceover who's like, I like to travel. I like to go to New York. And so she's able to get on planes and go travel for business and live a certain type of lifestyle. I tend to be much more introverted, so I like that idea of I can just work from home. I'm already at work, and then I do a half day, and I have the whole rest of the day to go to the spa, to go to drive out to my second place in Palm Springs, to enjoy going on vacations, whatever. It frees up your life. So you can design that, and that's what I teach. Okay. So anyway, I'm James Spencer. Thank you for joining me today, and I really appreciate you. Feel free to, like I said, like my channel. If you have any questions, leave them below. And if you want to work with me, my number is at the end of the video. Thanks again. Look forward to seeing you in the next video.